Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dive into the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our super curious viewers. Too fancy for the rain. Thanks for the suggestion. Too fancy for the rain. You asked, why were umbrellas once a symbol of high status? If you've ever popped open an umbrella and felt instantly more powerful, maybe even royal, you're not alone. Back in the day, umbrellas weren't just for dodging rain. They were a sign that you were important, wealthy, or maybe even divine. So if you've ever wondered why ancient kings and emperors had people following them around just to hold an umbrella over their heads, stick around. We're unraveling the fascinating history of umbrellas as a high-status symbol, right here on Explaining Everything. Let's rewind a couple of thousand years. Imagine you're in ancient Egypt, China, or India. It's hot, like melt your sandals hot. The rich people, they do not sweat. No way. You think Cleopatra was out there getting sunburnt? No, sir. That's where the umbrella, or as fancy people called it, the parasol, came in. In ancient times, umbrellas weren't about rain. Rain wasn't even the problem. The real enemy? That giant fireball in the sky, also known as the sun. If you were rich and powerful, you could not be seen walking around all sun-kissed and crispy. Nope. Pale skin was the look because it screamed, I don't work in the fields like a peasant. The bigger the umbrella, the more important you were. Some rulers had giant multi-layered umbrellas carried by actual people. Yeah, their entire job was just to hold an umbrella over a king's head. Imagine that being your job title, professional shade provider. Now, if you think umbrellas were fancy in Egypt, wait till you hear about China. China took umbrella status to another level. The Chinese didn't just make umbrellas big, they made them symbolic. If you were the emperor, your umbrella had to be massive and decorated in a way that screamed, I am untouchable. Some even had 4 levels. That's right, a 4-story umbrella. What was it protecting them from? The sun? Birds? Judgment? No one knows. Oh, and guess what? Only royalty and high-ranking officials were allowed to have certain umbrellas. If you were just some random dude walking around with a multi-tiered umbrella, you'd probably get arrested, or at least given some serious side-eye. Now, let's head to India, where umbrellas weren't just for shade. They were basically walking billboards that screamed, I'm powerful, respect me. Kings and nobles had these super ornate, gold-covered umbrellas. Some even had jewels on them. Because, you know, a normal umbrella wasn't enough. If your umbrella wasn't blinding people with its golden shine, were you even a king? Also, the number of umbrellas you had was a huge deal. Some rulers had dozens, even hundreds of them. The more umbrellas you had, the more important you were. Imagine going to a king's palace and just seeing an army of umbrellas chilling in the background like bodyguards. Even today, in certain Indian religious and cultural ceremonies, umbrellas still play a big role. They're used in temples, royal processions, and weddings. Because nothing says, I made it in life, like someone holding a giant umbrella over your head. For a long time, Europeans were like, hey, we'll just get rained on. Seriously, umbrellas didn't catch on in Europe until way later, around the 17th and 18th centuries. and even then, they were mostly for rich women who didn't want their wigs ruined. But when umbrellas did become popular in Europe, they became a straight-up fashion statement. Wealthy men and women carried them as stylish accessories. Some even had swords hidden inside. Yes, sword umbrellas. Imagine pulling out an umbrella and, surprise, it's actually a weapon. James Bond wishes he had that. At first, though, men were hesitant to use umbrellas because they thought it was too feminine. That is, until one absolute legend named Jonas Hanway, an English dude from the 18th century, started strutting around London with an umbrella like he didn't care what anyone thought. He basically invented umbrella confidence. Eventually, everyone else followed suit. Sadly, like all great status symbols, top hats, monocles, having a butler named Jeeves, the umbrella eventually became normal. Mass production made umbrellas cheap, and suddenly everyone had one. They were no longer just for kings and queens. They were for everyone who didn't want to get rained on. Now, umbrellas are practical. We leave them in taxis, lose them at coffee shops, and buy cheap ones that immediately break in strong winds. We no longer see them as power symbols, unless you're Mary Poppins or the Penguin from Batman. So, what did we learn today? Once upon a time, umbrellas weren't just about staying dry. They were the ultimate flex. They showed power, wealth, and the fact that you didn't have to deal with the sun like regular people. Maybe it's time to bring back the umbrella as a status symbol. Next time you walk around with one, do it with confidence. Get yourself a gold-plated one or a 4-tiered one. Maybe even hire someone to hold it for you. Let's make umbrellas fancy again. If you enjoyed this video, or if you ever want to feel like royalty using an umbrella, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about, here on Explaining Everything.